Everybody, give it a minute for people to get on. Working from home today before heading out on the road again. Benny, we're supposed to have started.
Presenting Benny Goodman and his music.
A couple people noted at the library it was weird not having Benny Goodman playing when I got started. Hey, everybody. Hey, Mom. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I'll call you in a bit. Hey, Dina. Hey, Larry. Hey, Martin. Morning, everybody. See, I got all my understudy gear. Got an understudy cup.
Benny Goodman, ladies and gentlemen, the man with the torrid
Understudy
clarinet
shirt.
and the even more torrid band.
Hey,
who plays
Phoenix.
assorted rhythms, all danceable, in the urban room of the Congress
Hey,
Hotel
Miles.
in Chicago. And first of all,
Lily was
the
walking around in the
great
kitchen a second ago.
Blue skies.
In fact, I hear her. Lily? You want to come be on TV? That's Priya. They're not all getting along yet, but they're not fighting. Hey, Katie. Happy Mother's Day. Hey, Sherry. Hey, Beth. Hey, Heather. Hey, Miles. Hey, grandkids galore over on YouTube. Hey, Chuck. Good to see you the other night. Hey, Gene. Hey, Patty. Miles. Kathy, no, I'm afraid I don't. I had to just throw something together real fast in this brief window that I am home. Throwing something together for my current research project. Hey, Todd. Hey, April and Heather. Oh, that's awesome, Octavio. Yeah, I was at the House on the Rock with the effing crew yesterday. We went out for a business retreat and had an absolute blast. It was a much needed day, but then of course I've already driven 3 hours this morning to get home. And now we're off to Cleveland again shortly. So, it's a whole lot of driving for me. But I'm there to do laundry. Hey, Gail. Mike, no, I didn't have time for all that. It was just a one-day thing. We drove past it. On the way into Spring Green, where the town with the nearest coffee shop to where we were. They've got a music venue there called the Shitty Barn, soon to be featuring a band called Crib Shitter. Well, I looked up and it turns out they're awesome. They play yacht rock. Hey, Annie. Hey, Kathleen. But of course, the rock album of the year arrived in my mailbox. The Electric Mayhem's album. Long awaited. Genuinely a great rock album. Heartfelt takes on ballads, some great rock originals, some great jams. Chicago Alley Rat eating pie. Yes. And one episode of the Electric Mayhem show is a Get Back parody, even has the striped mug. You know, like all these streaming spin-off series, the Star Wars ones, the Muppet ones, etc., have been a hit or miss, but Mayhem has been a fantastic show. I haven't gotten all the way through it yet. but I've loved it. My friend Joe Hennis actually got to interview the Electric Mayhem. Oh yeah, Miles is right there. Lily, I think, is in the kitchen. Oh, Lily's on the bed with Ronnie. Thanks to those of you sending donations today. I really appreciate that. I'm hoping to get... I was thinking of splurging on a hotel room tonight rather than continue driving in Cleveland. You know, the drive into Wisconsin was very nice. It's all rolling hills and farmland. The drive on I-80 is not. There goes Priya. All right, I think so. We should have about enough people on today. I'll talk you through what I've thrown together for today. We will join together in the band and play Join. There's a good cover of that on Electric Mayhem. But all right, so as many of you know, one of my many current projects going on, fiction and non, is a book about the cemeteries in Lower Manhattan. That'll be sort of a spiritual follow-up to my Graceland Cemetery book. The same kind of thing. It's not just a book about the cemetery and what everybody owned. It's really who were these people. I don't really care what office they held or anything, like Lord Autumnbottom. And it's quite literally what we're talking about today. But the stories there are so much different from Chicago stories. These people occupied a very different time in history, a very different location. The background stories are way wilder. Even when they seem the same on the surface, when you get just one layer beneath, it gets stranger and stranger and stranger. So let's pop up here to St. Paul's Church, right next to the Oculus. That's a mall/train station in the shadow of the World Trade Center. And just on the other side, St. Paul's Church. Goes back to the 1700s. George Washington attended services here. Miraculously survived not only 9/11's rubble debris, but also things like the fires of 1776. Still standing to this day. So St. Paul's has a lot of interesting people. Just to the left of this image would be George Eaker, the guy who shot Philip Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton's son. Just along the edge to the right of the chapel from here is a guy named Eliezer Oswald, who very nearly fought a duel with Alexander Hamilton. And really one common theme that I see is who in this cemetery didn't nearly fight a duel with Alexander Hamilton? There have been a lot of them. But one guy who is here, but no one knows exactly where, my guess is probably somewhere in this front field area, is a guy by the name of Lord Bellomont. Real name Richard Coote. I probably would have gone by Lord Bellomont too. The first Earl of Bellomont, who in the late 1600s, this guy was appointed governor of New York, Massachusetts, and New Jersey. And one thing he figured out, one of the big problems that the colonies were dealing with in the late 1600s was pirates. Pirates were just like wandering the earth in New York. So he decided he would make a name for himself by cracking down on piracy, and also in the process make a lot of money for himself. So one of the most prominent citizens in New York at the time, a guy who lived in about the biggest mansion in town about 4 blocks away from here, was a guy by the name of William Kidd. He had previously been a privateer. That wasn't really what made him rich. He got rich by marrying a rich woman, the old-fashioned way. But he put in an agreement with them to finance a voyage going back into privateering. But this is Captain William Kidd, also known as Captain Kidd the Pirate. So this is where it gets a little bit weird, is that for the first couple of years, officially Captain Kidd was supposed to be attacking French ships under the protection of the Kingdom of England. So this was privateering. It was basically legal piracy, and Lord Bellomont was supposed to get some of the money from it. But after a couple of years, he couldn't seem to find any pirates to capture. His crew did a couple of mutinies, and then rumors started going around that Captain Kidd had turned pirate himself. This was not necessarily true, but the political winds were shifting. And Lord Bellomont realized that he might be in trouble for this. He was the financier. He himself could be accused of piracy. So word got out. He managed to get word to Captain Kidd that if you come find me in Boston, we'll work all of this out. But he met up with him in Boston really just to have him arrested. So while he was in jail, Captain Kidd wrote letters through the jailer saying, okay, I got a deal to make for you. I stashed a whole bunch of treasure on Gardiner's Island, and if I'll get you that, and if you get me pardoned, I can get you even more treasure. These letters between the two of them really are what sparks the legend of Captain Kidd's buried treasure. Now, Lord Bellamont was able to retrieve the treasure that he had stashed on Gardiner's Island. It wasn't really buried, I don't think. It was just stashed. But in fact, there's a whole index of all of the stuff. And there's letters like this that are endorsed by Lord Bellamont. But he just used this as evidence against him. He had completely turned on him. Evidence today is probably that Captain Kidd had not, in fact, turned pirate. He actually was operating legally the entire time. But the political winds had shifted. Lord Bellamont thought it would make him look better if he had Captain Kidd arrested, brought back to London in chains, and put on trial and executed, which is what happened. There's a broadside that came out at the time. The arraignment, trial, and condemnation of Captain William Kidd for the murder and piracy. Murder. Old-fashioned way of saying murder. It's kind of amusing when that stuff comes up. But Captain Kidd was tried and executed and hanged. Lord Bellamont died about a year later of natural causes. Now, he was initially buried about 4 blocks from here at a little chapel that was where Battery Park is now. Like in between Battery Park and Bowling Green on the southern tip of Manhattan. But in 1790, about 89 years later, they tore that chapel down and found all the bodies buried underneath it. Most of these, here's like a newspaper article about it, that part of the ground in the fort where the chapel formerly stood being totally removed, the commissioners for conducting repairs with permission of Bishop Provost, deposited on Sunday last the remains of the bodies which have been dug up in the charnel house in Trinity Churchyard. This was just a stash of bones. But 2 leaden coffins, one of which contained the remains of the Earl of Bellamont, were cased and reinterred in the same day in St. Paul's Churchyard. So we don't know where exactly in the churchyard Lord Bellamont is buried, but his lead coffin was reburied here. They knew it was him because there was a silver plate with like his coat of arms and his name on top of it. Now, this is where it also gets weird, is that silver plate apparently was placed in a museum for a while, then eventually got melted down into teaspoons. So he himself became buried treasure after working with the most infamous pirate treasure burier, real or imagined, in United States history, arguably. So those are the kind of stories that we're finding out here in St. Paul's Churchyard. Every day I find some new wild one to keep me occupied on these long trips. So, a quick upcoming tours thing. Coming up, we've got a virtual tour to be named later. That'll be on Thursday night. Haven't quite figured it out yet. And May 21st, next Sunday, we should be back and moving. May 21st, next Sunday, we are going to be at Graceland Cemetery. You can find the tickets for all of that stuff on adamchicago.com. Those of you who send me Patreon messages about it, I promise I'm about to be able to answer all of them. Followed a little bit behind on email and all in the last few days. And with that, everybody, once again, thanks everybody for helping out. We got hopping back on the road shortly after my laundry is done. So thanks a lot for joining me, everybody. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago Tours, reminding you all to be listening to the Electric Mayhem album first and foremost. Happy Mother's Day to all those who celebrate. And of course, everybody, be like a good ghostly pirate at St. Paul's. And stay spooky. Stay ye spooky.